Guys, today I'm going to break down Dan Martell's systems. All the systems he teaches about in his training and his books. I'm going to show you what they actually are in terms of software implementations and break them down for you. Because you can say Dan Martell's big saying is you can buy back your time. In his famous book, Buy Back Your Time. But what he doesn't tell you is that you need the revenue systems in place first before you can hire anyone. You see, I've implemented Dan's strategies at multiple companies, and today I'm going to break down the systems gaps between his advice and the actual systems implementations, the critical revenue systems that you need to build before you can ever buy back a minute of your time. Because really, it all comes down to having the money to buy back your time. So today I'm going to give you a demo. It's going to be a little different. It's going to be more of a walkthrough of the systems and a full systems build and breakdown. I'm going to be demoing on this screen here, so I might not always be looking in the camera. There's going to be a demo going on over here, walk you through the systems, and we'll just jump right into it. Now, in Dan's book, can you guys track along here with me? I know these are just my notes, but I'm going to go through it all. Before you can implement his strategies, I'll explain why it's a before. Dan gives some amazing advice in his book, and I'm a big fan of his. But his first big idea is what he calls the buyback loop. Now, this is not a substitute for buying the book, so I want you guys to get Dan's book, but you can see it here on this page. But here's the circle he talks about. As an entrepreneur, we go through pain. We can do this audit of what's causing us pain and the things you can delegate and buy back your time. That's the audit. You transfer it to the person you hire, and then you fill your time with more high-value activities. Okay, so the first thing is the buyback loop. And he has a really nice formula for what you should pay and what tasks you should delegate. So that's why you need the book. You got to go through the whole framework with him. The second big idea is the drip matrix. This is where you literally, he follows the buyback rules. You're basically trading off things that you are high performance, high revenue driving activities, and you can delegate the others. So there's a quadrant on how to score your activities here. And that's shown here on page 44. And then a lot of entrepreneurs get drained because the tasks are just a beatdown. Some they love doing, some they don't. He calls it the time and energy audit. So you're doing a classic time audit, and he shows a quick example. You probably can't read it, but you're just listing all your tasks all day long. Every 15 minutes, he wants you to track your tasks. And then whether they bring value, that is, they drive revenue, he wants you to put a dollar sign. How much revenue? Are they a revenue driver? And if you like doing them, they're green, like they give you energy. Or if you don't like doing them and they take your energy away, flag them in red. And then you can score and plot them and figure out what to delegate. Okay? So, basically, Dan is an ad for our company. I'll explain. Almost all of his techniques start with buy back your time. That assumes you already have what we call a revenue command center. That's our word for it. Dan has the same thing in mind. This is something that we create for our clients. We look at all your target revenue goals. In your case, maybe you're trying to get to 10 million or 100 million, whatever that financial freedom is, where you can buy back your life, right? We look at those revenue targets, and then we reverse engineer all the tasks that are generated that generate revenue and drive revenue. And then we track it all in our dashboard, all the data and KPIs you need to do to lead up to that revenue. Like how many sales calls and how many appointments and what's your closure rate and so on, and how many things you have to post on social media. And honestly, I've never met a client that has this. That's exactly why we create it for our clients. It's a game changer. So he's basically saying build your own revenue command center, because everything here is tied to the assumption that you know what it costs to do the work and what your value is in terms of how much revenue that task drives. And he's suggesting you move away from low revenue driving tasks. So Essentially, if you want to do this, I'll just give you a quick summary. It's essentially process engineering. You have to map out all your business processes. Those are all the steps in the process. And then look at how much time each step takes, what skill set each step takes. And then we layer on, does it drive revenue? Is it a leading indicator of revenue? And that's how we prioritize the high revenue producing tasks. Okay? So you walk through your business from marketing to sales, through operations, and then how you collect the money and track it in finance. And just map out all those processes. And then you can follow Dan's approach. And we would also put that in your revenue command center. So, now Dan's is very subjective. Like you just kind of guessed that it makes money. In reality, if you buy back your time, that does not mean you will actually go make money. Where we're a little different is we use imperial data, we use your own company's data, and then we guarantee that the systems we build will actually make money. That way, literally the investment is an investment. You pay X amount, but you get like 10X out or 100X out. So let me just break down why most entrepreneurs fail to buy back their time. It's because there's three things they're missing. One, it assumes you have extra money to buy it with. And then you basically increase your labor costs because you're going to hire someone else to do it. This actually increases your company's overhead. It also means you have a cash reserve. So do you have a cash reserve? And then assumes you have a budget and that money set aside. So there actually is money to do the buying of your time. But this is where most people struggle. If cash is tight and you're grinding it out, there probably isn't extra money, and that's all the busy work you're doing, right? It also assumes that you fill your time with these higher valued activities that will actually drive revenue. But that may not be true. What if you decide to go golfing and spend your time golfing? That won't drive more revenue. And if you do go to these higher value tasks, that revenue is probably delayed a few months from the work you're doing on the high value task. The cash may not come in right away. But let's assume, let's play the game. Let's say we have the money to hire someone. That means the new systems you need are, you have to go find candidates and you have to hire them. So you probably need a candidate hiring and a job application thing. And that means you have to have managers and recruiters that will help interview, onboard, and train these people. And to me, honestly, that kind of seems like more work. I think that's why most entrepreneurs are like, fine, I'd just rather do it myself. I can do it in 5 minutes. That sounds easier than hiring someone. But Dan says, don't fall for that trap. So listen to Dan. Don't listen to me when it comes to this advice. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Dan's advice. I'm a big fan of having employees do the work for you. That is how you build a company. You surround yourself with people smarter than yourself and let them solve your problems for you. It's awesome. Okay? There are actually additional costs, though, than just that buyback rate. He gives you this formula that if you look up your total compensation, say you make $100,000 a year, and he says to divide that by 200. Let's use the round numbers of 200 grand. Say your company pays you 200 grand a year, and you divide that by 2,000. That's how many hours there are in a year. So that would be basically $100 an hour is your billable rate. And he said it's kind of a no-brainer if you can get someone to do it for 1/4 of that. So divide by 4. So basically, anyone you can hire for $25 an hour, you should do it. And any task you can delegate to that person for $25. Okay? And that's it. Yeah. That's the buyback rate that he suggests. He gets way into it, way more in the book. That's why you got to get the book. But hey, before I go any further, I'm not sure I mentioned this, but I want you to share these ideas with your team. Because if you're a fan of Dan's, you need to save this video actually. So please subscribe and like it and actually save it. So you don't have to remember to find me. By the way, I'm Bryce Finnerty. I'm the founder of Deal Flow Dynamics. Big fan of Dan's, and I'm a serial entrepreneur like him as well. This is the 4th company I have built. So I have a little bit of a track record doing these things. I have built thousands of systems though. And that's why I can speak to you about the systems implementations behind this business advice. So save it and share it with your team, because you want to start everyone looking at how to buy back their time and help each other so they can stay in their best use and delegate the other work that's not their best use. Okay? So the one thing that you really have to do first that I feel like you cannot delegate is what I call the customer journey. In almost every marketing and sales cycle, they're based on this value ladder, creating value. And you need to know the journey a customer would go through as they shop you, they have problems, they're looking for solutions, they're out searching the internet, watching free training videos like Dan Martell, and they're looking for solutions to their problems. And so that's where the journey begins. You introduce solutions to their problem, help them become the hero of the story, solve their problem, make them happy, kind of go from hell to heaven, if you will. That ideal result they're looking for. They're on a journey as they ascend. They don't just walk into you and just buy everything. You have to nurture them, give them value, give them good advice, usually give them free things that they value, then what they call low ticket offers, inexpensive things they can try working with you a little bit, maybe come to a workshop or buy your book, a low cost investment. And then they work their way up to ultimately Dan selling a high ticket coaching offer. All those steps in the journey is what we call the customer journey. And they ascend the value ladder to get the most value of Dan as your coach. So you want to get the most value, hire Dan as your coach. That's the top of the ladder if you get to work with Dan. But only the entrepreneur knows the true value that they're designing here in their company. So you got to lay that out. How the customers think and buy, map that journey out. It's often then, defining your target, prospect, or avatar, how you sell to them and overcome objections and make your offers align to their needs, and then ultimately close the deals. You also need to train everyone on that, and those are just usually what they call the life cycle stages in a contact relationship management system, a CRM, or your sales pipeline. And so typically only the leader can do that. So make sure you do that if you're the leader watching this. Make sure you're really clear on this customer journey, because a lot of everything else builds off of that. Okay, so you guys want to see Dan's actual systems? I'm going to do a full demo. Okay, so this is where, I'm just going to kind of go through it, all of Dan's actual systems. And I have a couple tools you can borrow. So take notes, watch what I'm doing here. I use some Chrome extensions to help me. And so this is danmartell.com. And you can see he has a lot to offer on here. Interesting, he calls himself humanity's biggest cheerleader. He is very inspiring. He has all kinds of ventures and so on. This is kind of about him and everything he's doing. He's got the Martell method. He's got quite a following. These are all his social channels. We're going to talk more about that. That's where he's promoting himself with content and adding value. And I didn't even do so he even has some of the things I showed you. Look, he's got all this stuff here. He'll just give it to you. So you can even download it. So he's very generous with his knowledge and sharing and so on. So you'll see and then he hits you. See, he does this all the time. Once you come in here, if I lag for a little bit or try to bounce, he's going to try to capture my lead. So here he is trying to capture a lead from a web search. How does he do it? Let's take a look. I use this plugin here. Write this down. Wappalizer. Oh my gosh, this site's built on Wix. Okay. Not a fan, but you can see all of his analytics tools. Wix is a lightweight website builder. You'll see his other pages built on HubSpot and the other one's built on WordPress. So even Dan's web properties are built on different tech stacks. But you see something in common. He's got LinkedIn traffic tracking. That's from LinkedIn ads. That's from Microsoft. He's got Google Analytics. We strongly recommend that. He got Google ads conversion tracking, and he's got the Facebook pixel, which is for Meta, all the Meta properties, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. He's got Google Tag Manager. I'm going to demo that for you. Google Ads, and then another ad tracking tool called DoubleClick. Yeah, so this is how you can see what Dan's tech stack is doing. And that's one way we figure things out. I'm going to go to one of his other sites. Dan has a couple programs. Because he's a serial entrepreneur, he helps SaaS. Those are software as a service companies, because that's what he was into. He helps these SaaS companies grow. Let's take a look at this site. What's it built in? This one's in HubSpot. Again, LinkedIn, HubSpot Analytics now. Why does Dan have 4 different analytics tools? Isn't one enough? The answer is no. Believe it or not, we like to independently verify the data from 4 independent sources, and until they align, and they're very similar, then we can trust the data. Do not just trust one data set until you've at least independently verified it. Often they're double clicking. I've seen people set up conversions wrong where they said a web visitor was a conversion. They were just way off on their leads. So please put in lots of analytics until you got plenty of data. That also goes into our revenue command center. These are some of the techniques we use as well. Let's take a look at his ventures. This is the one that's built in WordPress. So probably over the years, he's had different experts helping him. He's using WordPress. This is a really good option. Elementor's a page builder. He's trying to rank organically. This is a good search engine optimization tool. He's probably doing some analytics on how we scroll and so on, but you can kind of see what he's running here. Hosted at WP Engine. I host stuff there as well. Okay. So Wappalizer will kind of tell you what his tech stack is. The next thing you can look at, if you want to see what his traffic is this tool called Ubersuggest. And we can just kind of look at the traffic on these various sites. So if you're trying to see like, oh, I might have to have X number of impressions to get X number of leads, this is how you can check. He's ranking for lots of keywords. Getting lots of monthly traffic, backlinks, and so on. And you can kind of see how his traffic is doing. It's actually going down a little bit. Anyway, it's a good tool to kind of check how is your traffic to your sites and funnels. The other tool I like is you can see what Facebook pixels he's using. So you can see there's actually 2 pixels on here. Shouldn't typically need more than 1, but there's sometimes a reason to have 2, like maybe there's an enterprise pixel or a pixel just for this audience. The pixel is a tool that sends data back to Meta. So Meta gets smarter about your business. So if you really want to take advantage of AI, why don't you use Meta's AI and Google's AI and Microsoft's AI, the people who are leading the AI industry, get their tags on your site. Then you're sending your data back to them, and they're helping optimize your social and your paid media for you. Okay, so get the Meta pixel, and then we talked about Google Tag Manager. Why are the tags? You can see that he has tags on here for AdWords and for Google Analytics. I'm surprised he doesn't have more tags than that. I'll show you an example where we set up about 20 to 30 tags for our clients. It's really how much you're into data. It really what it all comes down to. Okay, So he's got a couple web properties. They almost all drive you to some sort of form to subscribe. That's how he's capturing leads. If you want to see what ads he's running, I'm not sure if you've seen this before, but it's called Facebook Ads Library. So go to the Facebook/ads/library or look it up, and you can actually look up anybody's ads. So I searched on Dan Martell. I'm like, this looks like him. There's maybe a Danielle Martell, but this is Dan. And you can literally see what ads he's running. So you can literally just look at his advertising, his messaging, what he's doing, and you can copy something like this. If it's working for him, it probably works. Okay? So these are like those lead magnets I was talking to you about. This really one, 5 minutes, this is a heck of an offer. How to stop being busy and start being effective in just 5 minutes. That's quite the offer. And he's just telling you to sign up for his newsletter. I like watching the videos because you can always boost your posts. If you make videos...
This is how to get unstuck. Dan Martell runs a $100 million empire, and today he invites you to join the Martell method. Every week, he'll send you his best business and life advice without the cookie-cutter BS you hear everywhere else. Tap below to join now, 100% free.
That's a heck of an ad. You can just copy that ad and insert your company. So he's got a bunch of ads running, a lot of videos, but not everybody likes to watch videos. I typically prefer not to watch videos. So we usually want to make ads in both carousels, static images, and video. And then try lots of variations and see which one works the best. So you see Dan's doing a lot of paid advertising for all those of you who think ads don't work. If Dan's so smart, they must work. Because he would not be wasting all his money. All right, the next thing, we already saw that. So we mentioned email marketing. So here's an email I got from Dan just yesterday. He hits these emotional triggers like deep down, you're meant for more because he's really aspirational. He's trying to unlock your potential. I love that about him, his mindset. He's also trying to get engagement and a 10x version of yourself. And so he's trying to generate a lead out of this email. He's saying reply coach, and if you do, they will send you a link to essentially apply to be in his program. So you're like, oh, I want to apply. So now you're like, you want to be in his program. That's one email. And then another email that he sent a few days ago. This is more like a newsletter. See, it's longer. It's I like this because it's about thinking big. This is a really good one. Dan's all mindset. You've got to be thinking about being a $100 million company. And so this is a more deep dive, and then it usually has hooks into, videos he's done. And this is typically like a weekly newsletter. And then just he's plugging like anything you might have missed. This is why you sort of want to subscribe to newsletters. This one like summarizes a bunch of his content probably from the week. So he sends emails as well. That's the email nurturing, and then he even has a specialized site for his book itself. All right, so let me show you a few more things behind the scenes I didn't get to show you. Let's see if I can get this to fit. So just going down the stack, Google Ads. In here you can see all the campaigns set up, and you get a drop down of all the campaigns. And on Google you can set up ads that are on Google Search, on all their Google Ads Display Network, and YouTube, which is also really good. So if you want all those ads running on YouTube, you use this. Then we mentioned Google Analytics. You can see all the traffic coming in from all the various sources and all the events that we set up in funnels. And then you set up those events. Like I said, it was interesting. He didn't have that many events set up. Look how many events we set up for a client. These are on 3 different funnels, but we want to track each kind of action step through the funnel. And so we put a tag on it in Google Tag Manager. That sends data back to Google Analytics, but it also can send it anywhere else, like you saw in HubSpot analytics. And so they all start to share data, and that's how we confirm that all the data is correct and actionable. All right, hopefully that makes sense to you guys. That's a demo of Dan's tech stack, at least his web properties. You can go check him out on all of his socials. He's got tons of good info out there. Let's get back to the talk. Okay, so I just did this. I demoed a bunch of his tools and showed you a bunch of the tools I use to check out other people's sites, as well as to manage my own. Okay? Now, before you can really delegate anything, right, we said you need money. So if it actually helps if someone has a process to follow and the systems are already set up when you hire someone new. So one good idea is you set up the system and then delegate and let them run it. And we just talked about Dan promoting himself on paid ads, or you can hire an agency to do these. But if you noticed, what were the ads? They were just videos of Dan. So Dan has to shoot videos just like I'm shooting videos right now. And then social media posts are almost all videos and reels these days. So it's basically something you can't get out of. You have to make videos. Maybe you can train someone else to post them, but Dan still had to shoot them. He's the guy in the video. Leads. So now that someone saw you, do you see Dan was giving out free leads, like why join his newsletter and so on? Those are lead magnets. And so it's not uncommon to have 5 or 10 or even more lead magnets that you give away typically for free or at a very low cost that will attract people to become a lead. Once they become a lead, they come into your sales funnel. And we said earlier, the founder should go set that up in their CRM through the buying journey. And then the other system now is we're typically trying to set appointments because usually someone on that has to talk to them to close the deal and make the offer. And so appointment setting really needs to be automated, you know, like when you go set a meeting, like a booking calendar. And all that's really happening face-to-face over Zoom or whatever, over a webcast. And then here's a bonus. If you don't like manually following up, which I hate, being like, hey, when do you want to start? Are you guys ready? You know, all the lame sales follow-up. Well, AI is actually really good at this, and so are these lead nurturing sequences. So you can actually send out 5, 10, 100. We saw Alex Hermosi sending out 200 drips and follow-ups. Because if they're not ready to buy, it's usually not now. It's not yet. So they're maybe not ready today, but they're a fan. They might buy next year. They might buy in 2 years, right? So you want to follow up with them automatically and keep giving them value, like that newsletter I just demoed from Dan. It was just chock full of stuff that was very helpful. Good stuff. So, and then honestly, you probably need a content engine, right? So you need to start writing good content, recording good content, and be someone worth following online. Okay, so let's get back to the systems. Dan says buy back your time based on the structure of which makes you the most money. And so that means you have to have revenue systems that generate enough revenue to actually buy back your time, right? So our strategy at our firm is we build the software systems that have a positive ROI. Just like buying back your time strategy, but instead of delegating it to an employee, we let technology do it. And ideally, our approach plus Dan's approach is the win-win. You get employees to build your company for you, and you give them great systems that magnify their effectiveness. And so you typically should set them up at least a little bit so they have a system to work in when they start coming to work with you and they don't think you're an old dinosaur doing business on spreadsheets. So when you bring them in, the systems should be set up that are generating the revenue activities, and then these new people can just take that work off your plate and grow your company for you. And so our focus is you grow the money makers first, very similar to Dan's. And then we take what we call our revenue systems blueprint so that you'll hit those revenue targets. We'll lay out the exact systems you need to hit the metrics that will lead to that much revenue. I'm going to break that down a little bit later here. If you have those and you can see it all in your revenue command center, so now you have total clarity on the revenue, where it is, what activities drive it, then now it's go time. You should have plenty of money to buy back your time, hire, delegate, and then you will have plenty of money to go off and innovate about how to make more money. Okay, so I'd say take Dan's advice, but also take my advice. You need your revenue systems in place at the same time, or as you implement each one, baby steps, implement a system that goes along with that delegation to the employee. And then that's how you hit your financial goals, get your financial freedom, and get the life you want, right? That's the inspirational, exciting part. Okay, everybody, this is the last section of the video. I'm going to cover the real costs of implementing proper delegation systems because we haven't even covered this yet. And here's what it's about. I'm going to explain the systems you need to have this much delegation going on, as well as why it is worth it, because it's going to hit your $100 million 10x target. Let me just go over. Dan ends his book this way. He's talking about creating an empire, a massive vision. Don't just be an entrepreneur, he says. Create an empire. This creates a gigantic vision that inspires you and your company, and it's a vision everyone can get behind, especially if you're sharing the wealth and there's incentives to help grow the company. And then he explains that you need great clarity and detail in how to get there and hit your vision. Okay, so he's saying you need a plan. There we go. He also says if you follow it for 5 to 10 years, you can hit that $100 million target. So imagine you're like at 10 million now. What if you just doubled to 20 and then doubled again to 40 and doubled again to 80? And if you doubled again, you'd be over the 100 million in 5 years. That's pretty aggressive. So I'd say give yourself that 10-year runway. Others call it the big, hairy, audacious goal, 25 years out there, especially if you're young. But look how old entrepreneurs can be. Heck, even presidents are in their 80s now. So we got a long way to go here, folks. Think of how much money you're going to have if you stick with it. So let me tell you, to get the clarity on the money, little shameless plug, this is what we call our revenue clarity sprint. This is where we'll literally build out that revenue command center that you can follow year after year to hit that 10x vision. This is precisely what we do for you. And we are going to map out the revenue generating tasks and the systems that drive that revenue so you can focus there. So we essentially build out what Dan's explaining to you here on page 214 when he says, step into the arena and get this huge aspirational vision for building an empire. Just like Dan's had multiple companies, I've had multiple companies. Have a big vision. Who knows how many companies we'll have eventually. And so he recommends you start here. We recommend you start here. And then he says, once you have that vision and you have that detailed plan, preload the year. He calls it build out the entire year at once. All the major milestones. Those are all the projects, or what he calls rocks. Rocks were borrowed from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the famous book, and it's also used a lot. Rocks are in Traction, the book by the Entrepreneurial Operating System by Ginkgo Wickman. He's popular in Dallas because he's from Dallas. I'm from Dallas. He has a whole framework for the 10-year plan, the 3-year plan, the 1-year plan, quarterly plans, monthly plans, weekly plans, daily plans. And they all lead up very much like our revenue tracking system. They're also found in Vern Harnish's Scaling Up, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. And so this concept of rocks is out there. So Dan's like, build out your rocks and then fill in those rocks with pebbles. And those are basically the major things that have to happen. That's building these systems so that you can delegate your time to new people that you're buying back your time for, and all that good stuff. And so we're going to implement this preloaded year. But to implement something like that, it means you have a great team around you, right? All these people you're delegating to. It has a tight meeting cadence. You probably have daily stand-ups and weekly scorecards and monthly accountability. And everything he's talking about is trading time and money, which means you have a really detailed time tracking system and money tracking system, which is a lot of what we do for our clients, but you're going to need that as well. And all these are projects, by the way. So you're going to need good project managers who know how to keep track of everything, build teams, collaborate, and of course, solving problems. Problems are going to be on this road. So you need good problem solvers. So the real strategy is surround yourself with people smarter than yourself that you can delegate to and let them solve your problems for you. Great idea. Okay, so I did say I was going to break down exactly what these $100 million systems are. So thank you for making it down here to the end. If you want to know what the numbers look like, a company of that size, the $100 million target, say your average sale is $25K, maybe that's his high ticket coaching offer. To hit that, he's going to need 4,000 customers a year. And that's 300 every month. All right, so you now have very specific targets of how many customers every day, every week, every month you would need. So imagine that kind of volume, but you got some time to get there, and systems will get there. So let me just break down. As you know, there's tons of companies that size. You can do it too. But let me just show you all the systems that Dan has. I counted 24 at least because some of these are jumped together. Like ads have to be deployed on all channels, but each one's different. Google's different than Meta, and Instagram is different than Facebook, even within Meta. Treat each of the ads channels as a separate system because they're going to need their own tracking and attribution, and there's nuances to each channel. Same with social. I lumped them all in here, but Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and TikTok, they're all different, and I recommend you track each one as a separate system and see which one works best for you. Some might be great, some may not be. You're going to need warm email. That's how you talk to people who already know you in between sales or before they buy. Cold outreach is how you talk to people who don't know you. That's what cold means. They're not even aware of you. Be careful with this. You have to use a warmed up domain so you don't get flagged as a spammer if you look up that warming up domains. You also have to, you can use text. Text gets a lot better response rate than email, but you have to do it legally, and there's a very specific way you're allowed to do SMS marketing. Of course, all the leads come into your CRM, and Dan's using HubSpot. That's where all the leads are nurtured and the customer journey takes place. We showed you a bunch of Dan's websites today. You have maybe one or more websites. Each offer typically has a funnel. That's a website just there's one thing to do. Take the lead or don't, or bounce. That's it. It's a funnel. You either go down the funnel or you don't. And these typically funnel traffic into your website and into your leads. Integrating with Meta. We showed you have to send data back to Meta. There's a whole integration there on how you exchange data with Meta so that they're working for you. Same thing with Google. You have to integrate with Google AdWords. You need a Meta business page to even do ads in Meta. Also, I forgot to mention Google Business, Google Analytics I demoed earlier, Google Tag Manager to get specific event tracking on specific things you want to learn about. If you're selling anything like books through an e-commerce store, if you need to warm up a domain, there's whole domain warm-up tools out there. Look those up. There's a lot of automations. A lot of people like Zaps or Zapier. Not a huge fan. I prefer a good native custom integration that does a full integration of all data. Zaps usually send just a subset of the data. They're fragile. They're hard to test. They break. So only use those in a pinch. I've seen customers with thousands of Zaps and they have no idea what's going on. It's a mess. We said everything needs to be booking appointments. So if you have a team, a good calendar that sets appointments with the right people on your team, and if they cancel, how to get them to rebook, like a whole appointment setting framework. You should be using AI in your business, but you need to integrate it because AI has to be trained on you and your data and your intelligence to become intelligent. And so AI typically sits on top of good systems. So good systems first and AI second to accelerate them. If you're sending out proposals or doing estimates, you might have a proposal system or estimating system, especially like in construction. This is like a big deal, sending out estimates. An application funnel is if people are like applying to your program, you have to typically capture the applicants and score them. If they're signing contracts digitally, you might need like DocuSign or a contract management system. And if you're billing throughout like a quote to cash cycle, like payments along the way, you need typically an invoicing system that makes sure you don't miss any payments and they're not late. Accounting is your profit and loss statements, your income statements or cash flow statements, and your balance sheet, and where you pay the IRS. So everyone must have an accounting system, and that's sort of where we record historical revenue. So as the money's coming in, it goes into accounting, and then we feed that back out to see if we're hitting our target. That's kind of what we call the revenue command center. All these data points that lead to revenue, we pull all those in and integrate them all into your revenue command center. Now, I didn't even count like the collaboration tools you use from like Microsoft or Google. If you're doing video and podcasts, there's typically specialized systems just for that, and cutting video and shooting video. If you're pushing out a lot of content management's a big deal, and how do you save and version the content and distribute it. Certainly you're talking on the phone, so you have some sort of phone system. Financial system if you're financing things or taking on debt partners or lending money. Delivering his training, Dan must have a whole platform for how he makes content and distributes his training and his services. Operations is typically how you operate the entire company. He's making books and material. He has to manufacture that. Fulfillment is like the warehousing and shipping and packaging of that and getting that out the door. And then if you're doing anything like leveraging partner networks, referrals, affiliate networks, and channel partners, there's typically specialized systems just for them. Hey, I know I covered a lot today, but by now we're coming to the end. You made it all the way. Thank you so much. I hope you saved this so that you can review it with your team and figure out what systems you guys want to implement next. You can just borrow the tactics I just explained to you, and I also explained it in every other video I make, that you can just learn and do it yourself. But by now you should understand the revenue systems behind Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time strategy. You can probably also see why most entrepreneurs get stuck. They have the strategy, Dan gave it to you, but they don't have the systems to implement it. They may not have the aptitude to set up the systems, the discipline, the know-how, but you do need to set up these systems or bring in partners to help you like us. So if you're hitting these roadblocks that I just highlighted, your content systems can't scale to support the delegations, you have no clear path to generating enough revenue to hire the help, and maybe you're consumed by all the low-valued activities that prevent you from buying back your time. Like Dan said, in the first place, you're probably overwhelmed with all these low valued activities, and that's why he's telling you to go buy back your time and get those off your plate. You know what? You're not alone. We're all there sometimes, right? You need revenue system that will double your business without doubling your workload. So that's why I'm offering you a free revenue clarity call. On that call, I will map out the exact systems you need to implement first and in what order to overcome these roadblocks so that you have enough predictable revenue to actually buy back your time. So please click the link in the description below to schedule your free clarity call today. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.